Hamas knows that once the last hostage goes, they have no cards left. So how can you do that deal without military pressure?
Power and force, they don't respect anything. It's time that leaders will behave like leaders, not like politicians.
Is Britain still a friend of Israel now?
I think that the most important thing is...
How do you see the future of Gaza going forward after the war is finished?
I'll give you one rule. The less you know about Gaza, the better is your imagination about the solutions.
You've been called a war criminal by international court, and Keir Starmer, or the British government, has suggested that if you set foot in Britain, you might even be arrested.
Because in the Middle East, unfortunately, words, declarations, statements, and even written agreements have no meaning. The only thing that is important is performances on the ground. If you are weak, you will not survive.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on The Brink. I'm Jake Wallace-Simons.
And I'm Andrew Fox, and today we're joined by General Yoav Gallant, who served as Israel's defence minister between 2022 and 2024, including on October the 7th, and for the first year of the war.
Now, General Gallant entered politics after a distinguished military career, including as commander of Israel's elite Shayetet 13 Naval Commando Unit.
We hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, don't forget to like and share it, and if you're listening on audio, give it a star rating.
And just one more thing, my new book, Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, is out today, so don't forget to grab your copy. And now, without further ado, it's time for General Yoav Gallant on The Brink.
So, General Yoav Gallant, welcome to The Brink.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, it's been a busy weekend in terms of geopolitics, in terms of Israel, in terms of the rest of the world. I'd like to start by asking you about something that you posted on X, where you said there'll never be a Palestinian state. Starmer, the British mandate ended 77 years ago. You should focus on the Islamist surge in the UK, not on Israel. So my first question really is about your opinion and your thoughts about Keir Starmer and his decision-making over the weekend.
Well, I think that Israel is in a very bitter war in 7 fronts. And we were good enough to defeat our enemies and to make sure that we survive. It wasn't the situation on October 7. And, I have been to the battlefield on October 8, and I was watching with my own eyes what happened there. And the bodies were still on the ground, some of them. And I have seen what happened to the kids, to the children. And I learned to know what happened to the women. So by putting unconditional declaration that said time and again by many countries, including Great Britain, that the reward for this massacre is a Palestinian state. This is absolutely 180 degrees to dignity, to respect, to the loss of the life of the people. And I think that this is done only for domestic politics. And this is very sad. It's time that leaders will behave like leaders, not like politicians.
And what do you think it says about Keir Starmer and about the British government and about the state of Britain?
Well, my knowledge about everything that is done in Great Britain is limited, but I think that there is a great pressure, and because the government is not popular, not very stable, so some of your politicians are looking for external rivals. Well, that's what I said. 77 years ago, the British mandate ended in Israel. We declare the state of Israel. We are a democratic state. We are the only Jewish state in the world. And we know very well that the only way to preserve the future of the Jews is to protect themselves by themselves. And let me share with you a personal story. I am a son of Holocaust survivors. Most of the parents of the families of my parents, both sides, were eliminated on European land. And for me, never again is not only a commitment. For me, never again is a manual. I'm working according to it in all my life, in the last 50 years. And I'm willing to do anything that is needed in order to protect the Jewish people, the land of Israel, and I'm not alone. Millions of Israelis think the same.
Is Britain still a friend of Israel now?
I think that the most important thing is that we share the same values with Europe, including Britain. And
What, recognizing a Palestinian state in this way?
well, political decisions and interests are important, but they are second to the values. Great Britain is a democracy. We are a democracy. We have some friction, sometime a collision course, but basically, we know from our own experience that the only country that we share interest and values with is the United States of America. With the rest, we either share values or interest or a mixture of both of them. So I'm sure that we will find a solution, although the mistake that was done by the British government is something that need to be fixed.
So you're suggesting that with Britain, maybe Israel shares values, but not interests? Is that what you're implying?
Well, it depends what kind of interest. Some of them are very well shared between the countries. When we are looking for our enemies in the Middle East, and we are finding them. On the meantime, as a side effect, we find also your enemies. And we share this information immediately with Great Britain and many other things. And I know what is the level of cooperation between the defense establishments and the armies and the militaries in general. So I think that the ties are good, but sometimes your partners making wrong decisions. So it's time to say it loud and clear, but I think that the values is an essential thing, and I think it's something very, very fundamental and very important. And I hope that we will correct this situation. And if you look on the history in the last 100 years between Great Britain and Israel, there were ups and downs. My mother was expelled after arriving to Israel in 1947 on board of the famous ship Exodus. She was expelled by the British to Germany, to Hamburg. And she entered again when the State of Israel was declared by Ben-Gurion a few weeks later. So at that time, I don't think that the attitude was very positive. Right now, we are in a down, but basically I believe that this is long connections that we need to preserve them.
And when you said there would never be a Palestinian state, what do you envisage going forward in the future is going to be the alternative to a Palestinian state? If you don't think there will ever be one, how do you square that circle with a peaceful coexistence with Palestinian Arabs?
Well, let's start with the facts on the ground. And the facts are very simple. There are around 16 million people on the western side of the Jordan Valley. Half of them Jews, half of them non-Jews. Inside the Green Line, in Israel, we have more than 2 million Arabs. They are Israeli citizens, and they are equal. They have the rights, and we respect them, and we see them as part of our society. Now, speaking about a future Palestinian state, the area is too small to give an hostile entity the ability to control the air aviation, the water pumping, the cellular information, and definitely the entrance of others into the so-called the defined borders of what someone is thinking will be a Palestinian state. If they will decide that they will bring 1 million or 2 million Palestinians from Lebanon or other place to Ramallah or to Hebron, this can be a disaster for the state of Israel. So I think that this is
Why would that be a
something that
disaster?
if instead of having 3 million Palestinians in Judah and Samaria, you will have 5 that seek to work in Israel, and will create an enormous pressure on Jerusalem and other places. So this is not something that they can decide on themselves, let alone, of course, a Palestinian military. So if you define what is a state, this is not something that hit the criteria of a state. If you ask me whether they are going to be able to run their own businesses in the civil side, the answer is absolutely yes. This was declared for the last 60 years by Yigal Allon, by Menachem Begin, by Ariel Sharon, by Yitzhak Rabin, and basically by Benjamin Netanyahu as well. But this is something, an entity that is not a state. This is an entity that is similar maybe to Emirate in other places, some kind of autonomy as it was written by Begin and Sadat in 77 in the Camp David Agreement.
If I understand you correctly, your argument is a practical and security argument. It's not an argument about rights. Is that right?
Well, this is part of the issue. You can look on the history. It's very simple. And I'll give you 2 different tests. The first one is what happened in places that Israel left. Take, for instance, South Lebanon. Take, for instance, Gaza. Take, for instance, the Jenin area. Now, the area is very, very small and very, very tight. And once we will give them the option to do what they want in Judah and Samaria without any kind of inspection of the Israeli side, and I'm speaking first of all about the military point of view, you will get Gaza on steroids in 10 years. This is very dangerous. I don't know if you have been to this area, but you stand on the mountains in Shomron or in Judea, and you see the Mediterranean, and in between there is the largest concentration of the Jewish people in the world, between Haifa, Jerusalem, and Ashkelon, including Tel Aviv and the vicinity of Tel Aviv. So we cannot gamble on the future of the Jewish people, and therefore, unfortunately, this is the situation. And this is only one test. If you take the other test, is what were the Palestinians doing with the offers and the proposals that were on the table? The first one was in the Balfour Declaration, and the British know that very well. And later on, in 36, 37, during what they call the Great Rebellion, there was a suggestion to give them 70% of the land, 20% to the Jews and 10% under international mandate. They rejected and opened another war. And then in 47, the proportion changed to something less good for them. And every time there was another war, another intifada, Israel was strong enough to defeat them. They went to the international community, and time and again it happened, time after time. We don't have the resources to allow an experiment on the future of Israel.
And I think that probably tallies into where Gaza might be going now with the current offensive that's going on, because there's talk of destroying Hamas, and I think you can certainly neuter them militarily. You can certainly find an alternative governance in due course. But what I don't think you can do is change the views of 2 million people about how they feel about Israel, how they feel about the river to the sea, how they feel about the right of return. So how do you see the future of Gaza going after the offensive here and maybe in central camps, Deir Balah, once that's completed? Where does Gaza go after the war? I mean, I've not seen yet a comprehensive reconstruction plan, but even that I don't think would answer the fact that there are still 2 million people in there, the majority of whom still support Hamas conceptually, even if not physically, and who all want to remove the state of Israel and replace it with a state of Palestine. So how do you see the future of Gaza going forward after the war is finished, whenever that is?
When the war started, at the night of October 7, 23, I wrote down the 5 goals of war. 3 of them have been achieved during my period as a defense minister, actually before the summer of 24. We dismantle the Hamas formations, battalions, brigade, and for those who don't understand, we were attacked by a terror organization, but the military formation that attacked us on October 7 was a commando division with 4,000 people, with boats and with parachutes and with heavy machine guns and with pickups and platoons and companies. This is gone. Second, we decapitalized the leadership of Hamas. And third, we created the fetch to maneuver and to do anything needed in Gaza in order to secure our security in the future. But we stayed with 2 goals, and these 2 goals is to free the hostages and to replace Hamas by an alternative which is not Israel. So any military operation needs to aim to achieve one at least, or those two actions. And unfortunately, the military operation by itself is not enough. And believe me, I'm not against killing Hamas terrorists. I was making living from killing Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists, and I think that those who attack us on October 7 need to be punished and need to be brought to justice. This is a must. But unfortunately, we are going to fight Hamas for a long period of time because there is only one order to fulfill these 2 missions that I was speaking about. One, first of all, to free the hostages, and then to go and to continue to hit Hamas till we find a solution that create an alternative for Hamas. And by saying that, I mean that even if we don't like the idea, we will be fighting Hamas for a long period of time. You know, I was fighting Hamas in 87, 88, in the first Intifada as a young colonel in Judah and Samaria. And we're still fighting them right now after almost 40 years every night in these places because we have to maintain the situation. But you know, the life of the hostages is you know, on the edge. This is what you call in military terms TCT, time critical target. If you don't achieve it, it's gone. We need to rescue them when they are alive. Bring them first, and then continue to do what is needed with Hamas. There is only one order. If you go the other way around, there will be no one to bring back home.
I mean, it's very, you're very clear in that agenda. So first of all, I think what you're arguing is to stop the war, to do a deal to get the hostages out, and then to finish off Hamas in time. But how do you do that deal to get all the hostages out? Because Hamas knows that once the last hostage goes, they have no cards left. So how can you do that deal without military pressure?
Well, I am the one who is standing behind the idea that we will speak to Hamas only under pressure and only under fire. And I learned it from my own experience as a commander of Southern Command and in many, many operations that I ran against Hamas and Hezbollah. Because these criminals understand only one thing. This is power and force. They don't respect anything. And therefore, we will make an agreement. Now, the agreement is to bring all the hostages. If they will refuse to give even the last one, we can continue immediately. And I know that, a partial deal to bring only 10 is not ideal, but it's much better than to not to have them. So anything we can start with, let's do it, and let's bring 10 hostages, 12, whatever is possible, and argue for the remains in the future. And there is no perfect solution to anything, but time is running out.
Well, when I saw you in the Kiryat in Tel Aviv last July, you were quoting Clausewitz. And so to quote some Clausewitz back at you, of course, war is politics with the admixture of other means. Do you think there's a political solution to this? Because at the moment, from a sort of objective outside perspective, it looks very much like military force is being used without a really clear political end state. And I'm not convinced that there's a clear plan yet for what happens after the fighting. And of course, to use Sun Tzu, tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So where do you see this going politically with Gaza?
Yes, the role of the military is to bring the conditions, and the role of the government is to seal the deal. And we have been to these potential conditions to release hostages a few times in the past. And basically, the deal we got at the last days of Biden administration, with the pressure of President Trump, was the same deal that was on the table on May 24. So they understand power, and on the other hand, the power or the military can bring the ropes very close, but the tie is a political tie. So this is regarding the hostages. If you speak about replacing Hamas, I said in the first days of the war, and I repeated it publicly on January 24, and ever since, that there are only three options for the future control in the day after in Gaza. One is Hamas. This is totally unacceptable by anyone, I think, in the normal modern world, including definitely Israel and Europe and the United States. And the second option is Israel controlling Gaza. Well, I think this will be very expensive, first of all, in human life. Second, we will not stay there because we have other missions, and because this is not Jerusalem and not the Hermon Mountain. This is not a strategic point. And whether it will take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and I'm speaking from experience in Lebanon, in Jenin, and other places, eventually we will leave the area, but no one will bring the life that would have been lost, unfortunately, in these circumstances. So the only solution is a third party. While I was looking around the world, there are no volunteers. No one wants to come to Gaza. So the only solution that we have is Palestinians who are not Hamas. And there are many of them, because Hamas is a phenomena that control part of the population. Most of the people originally are not coming from the Hamas regime. And I'm not saying that they are our friends, but this is the better solution. And the goal, and I would say the role of the government, the Israeli government, is not only to say what not, but also to say what yes. And the what yes is to create a solution. I came with the idea that we call it the bubble plan, the bubble program. And the idea was that you take over and clean from terrorists one neighborhood, and then you isolate it, and you bring Palestinians who are not Hamas, that were getting ready in advance, and you pump all the supply, all the resources to the population through these people, and you empower them, and then you go to the next bubble, and eventually you connect them, and you create something that is alternative. This is a very long process. This process is I would say, Sisyphic. But eventually, this is the only way, because the other solutions are much worse.
You know, the French have proposed an international force to administer Gaza. The details I haven't seen. I don't think they've been released as to which nationalities would be involved, but it's some kind of international force.
There was talk of some Arab states. The Canadian Prime Minister offered up Canadian troops, which really surprised me after their experience in Kandahar. And as a three-time Afghan veteran, and I'm familiar with how easy it is for these kinds of campaigns to fail. So yeah, it was.
It feels to me like the international community at the UN has just been forming a plan literally without Israel sitting there in the room. The Palestinians haven't been there either, because they've been via video link, because they haven't been able to get into New York. You've got Macron leading the charge. You've got Starmer getting in behind him, all the other European nations. What meaning does any of this have? Is it totally fantasy, or do you think there's some scope in there for some way forward?
When I refer to the idea of what I call the bubble program, the essential amount of people who will inspect the situation are Palestinians who are not Hamas, but they will be supported by battalions of from Arab countries and maybe other countries, and also by commercial companies. But to answer directly your question, I spent something like 10 years in, I would say, a direct command on Israeli formations in Gaza, including Southern Command and Gaza Division. I was training and I was acting in this area for 40 years, maybe more. I was training, by the way, in the 80s in Gaza in order to prepare my soldiers to operations in Lebanon, because the situation over there was very quiet. And I'll give you one rule. The less you know about Gaza, the better is your imagination about the solutions. But unfortunately, it doesn't connect to reality. While speaking from the Elysee about what's going on in Shati, this is a grave mistake.
Right, and it's a wonderful message to Keir Starmer. And I would also add that, you've been called a war criminal by international court, and Keir Starmer, or the British government, has suggested that if you set foot in Britain, you might even be arrested. What do you think of that? Has that got any connection to reality at all?
Well, first of all, I'm very proud of being accused of defending the state of Israel and leading the war against 7 enemies simultaneously and defeated them. I'm very proud. This is my mission in life, and I'm willing to do anything needed, including paying a personal price. Second, this is, I would say, a very awkward way to look on moral issues. When the British law was the rule in Israel before the establishment of the Jewish state, people were hanged by the British to punish them. This is something that doesn't happen again under our democracy. So I'm not sure that this is the right way to look at it. And I'll give you one extra sentence. During the war, I was hosting many, many delegations from all over the world. Many of them were from Europe. And those delegations usually consist of a minister, sometimes prime minister or president. And he was usually escorting by generals, high-ranking generals. And after the first or the second mass, when they went back, usually to Europe, but also to some other places, the politicians were condemning Israel for acting in, I would say, a way that is I would say, too severe. And at the same time, the generals were calling me or the chief of staff or other generals and asked them to get the systems, the technology, the ideas, and the methods of how we are doing that because they knew to appreciate what we are doing. So this is the double standard against Israel. Because we are small, because we are isolated, and because we are fighting for our life, this is not for some politicians. It's not the right way. So they prefer to condemn us. But I'm sure that we are right, and we know what is the alternative. We have been to Europe. I know what happened in Europe to the Jewish people. So we prefer to defend ourselves by ourselves. And by the way, we never ask anyone to help us or to support us with boots on the ground.
You can confirm that yourself as a military man with all your experience and expertise. You've been there and seen how the war's fought, and you have a completely different view than that of Keir Starmer and Macron and all the others.
Yeah, of course. Well, I've been into Gaza 3 times during the war. Not many people outside Israel can say that, but and I've got a 25,000-word paper coming out next month about all the lessons that we can learn from the IDF from an army perspective. And I think the IDF's fought a very impressive war, and they've done an incredible job of protecting civilians. And, this gets thrown at me on social media all the time. But if you look at the sheer amount of munitions that have been dropped in Gaza, if the IDF wasn't taking care of civilians, the death toll would be vastly, vastly higher. So, nothing in the allegations makes any sense to me whatsoever.
Let me add to it that we had many different ways to warn the population, and the only reason is to make sure that they are not involved in the situation. And unlike any other conflict in the world, the people in Gaza cannot go anywhere because the Egyptians block the border. It's not like fighting in Mosul or in Fallujah or even in Kosovo or in Mogadishu. If you hit with one bomb in a certain area, the people go dozens of kilometers away. Here they can go only to a designated place which is not far away. So this is a major issue. So we send pamphlets and messages and videos and TV, and we hit them with small calibers on the roof so they will leave the buildings, and so forth and so on. This is all ideas that were, invented in many ways by the Israeli forces in order to make sure that we define who are the bad guys and who are the good guys. And unfortunately, as you know, in the battlefield, things are happening, including what we call friendly fire. You don't want to hit your own people, definitely not your own soldiers, but it happened many times in Israel and in other places. So it happened also with civilians, but in purpose, never. We will never hit civilians in purpose, and this is exactly the difference between us and our enemies, especially Hamas and Hezbollah. These criminals burn babies. You need to remember that all the time.
It's a double standard once more, because I know for a fact that we killed civilians by accident in Afghanistan. This is what happens in war. And I myself have, when you talk about friendly fire, I've been on the wrong end of a British 30mm cannon from a warrior fighting vehicle. So, these are just things that happen in war. And yet for Israel, it strikes me that they're held to a completely different standard to any other army.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to move on in a minute and talk about politics a little bit. But before we do, I just wanted, there's just 2 outstanding questions from our discussion so far, which I wanted to throw at you, if that's okay. The first one is about the strategy that you're proposing for ending the hostilities in Gaza and having some political solution. I just can't get my head around the idea that you could get some of the hostages home, let's say you leave 10 behind, withdraw Israeli troops, and then that being a solution, because it feels to me like that's the conditions for further warfare, for further unrest, further bloodshed, and Israeli troops going back into Gaza with international mood as it is feels to me like a very difficult thing to accomplish. So that's question number one. And question number two was about our discussion about the Palestinian state. The idea that seems to be on the table, I'm no fan of the recognition, don't get me wrong, but the plan that seems to be on the table at the UN is that the Palestinians would commit to a demilitarized state. And I wonder whether that would in some way make you feel a bit better, in theory, if it was achieved, about allowing them to have that self-determination.
Well, as to the first question, what I said is that we need to bring all the hostages, live and unfortunately dead, to back to their families and to their home. But having said that, if you can do it in one sequence, that's fine. If you need more than one step, we will do it in two steps. But let me remind you what's going on in Lebanon. I was behind the agreement that was achieved with the negotiation with the Lebanese, with the Americans in the position of being the mediator, and there were two conditions that said no formation south of the Litani and no smuggling of any kind of weapons, sea, air, and land. But I put another third condition. And the third condition was if Hezbollah do not obey to the agreement, and if the LAF or UNIFIL and others are not willing to control Hezbollah, Israel has the right to do whatever is needed in order to make sure that they will not get into power again. Definitely in South Lebanon, but all over. And this was accepted by the Americans in a side letter. And what's going on now in Lebanon is that this agreement is, I would say, stable, or at least relatively stable, only because of one reason. Israel is strong and Hezbollah is weak. Israel is active, and once Hezbollah is working against the principles that were agreed, we are acting. This will be the situation with Hamas for a long period of time, and this is the only way to maintain the situation, because in the Middle East, unfortunately, words, declarations, statements, and even written agreements have no meaning. The only thing that is important is performances on the ground. This is our life. This is the reality around us, and you can look at it in any angle that you wish to look. If you are weak, you will not survive. That's very, very simple and very, very sad. So we decided to be strong, not to be weak. And I am one of those who are working for eternity, for all my life, to make sure that we accomplish this mission. Now, speaking about Judah and Samaria, you cannot trust not words and not declarations. I was already commander of Jenin Brigade when the Oslo Agreement came to be into reality. And I remember very well that one day I heard in the radio, because I wasn't part of the discussions, of course. I was in the middle level in the military. And I heard in the radio that there is an agreement, Oslo Agreement, and the next day, 500 armed Palestinians went with Israeli permission only to Jenin area, and 5,000 to Judah and Samaria, and similar number to Gaza, and it took very short period of time, 2 years or 3 years, before these weapons went against Israeli soldiers and Israeli civilians. So, with all the respect, it's not a place where you buy declaration or statements, only performances.
We've talked a lot about October the 7th and the war that came as a result. Clearly, there were some major errors on the Israeli side to have allowed that to happen. And then, of course, a lot of people who were in positions of power during 7th of October maintained their positions, yourself included, for a good amount of time. When do you think is the right time for an inquiry, a proper governmental inquiry into what happened on 7th of October?
Well, first of all, I think this was a grave mistake. And the roots of this mistake belongs.
If you've been enjoying the conversation so far, don't panic. To catch the rest of the episode, just head over to our Substack at thebrinkpodcast.co.uk. And don't forget to grab a copy of my brand new book, Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, in all good bookshops now.